Yo, what's up? So we have about 1 day left in the banners. The current lineup, we have one of the most stacked units in the game to summon for. But first off, you should summon for units that you find fun and what you like, because it is a game after all. If you're not having fun with the game, then what's the point, right? First one, I'm gonna go through the units that are not worth it. The first one is going to be Jin Qiu. Like I said in my previous Jin Qiu, should you summon or not, is that his main problem is going to be the turn count, right? If you take a look at any Ritual Miracle, he is not there except for Andras. The reason why he is used for Andras is mostly for wave clearing. It's not for the boss. He does good damage on the boss, but the main carry is still going to be Tever. If you take a look at the leaderboard, the team that uses him also uses Tever. So his main role is pretty much just to clear the waves, and Tever is still going to be your main carry because he eats up way too many turns for him to do damage. His damage is okay, but because he eats up too many turns in the process of doing his damage, it just makes his damage very weak. And then in Falsetto Fantasy, he is also not being used in any of the teams because once again, Falsetto Fantasy is turn-based. You only have a set amount of turns to do your thing. You take a look at the top 100 on any of the boss, he is just not going to be in the team. And if you're contemplating on whether to summon for him R0 or R2, R0, again, like I said, he's not going to be worth it. But R2, I just tested his R2 out, where this one, right? When any teammate inflicts debuffs on the enemy, grants Punish Evil for 1 turn, half the Punish Evil effect that Jin Qiu grants himself. This part of the passive, the ally will not get this plus 2% boost each time enemies are inflicted with debuffs. So the only percentage that the ally gets is this 50% divided by 2, which is what his R2 states, giving the ally 25% base attack and also base defense. Keep in mind, this is base attack, it is not overall attack, which means this base attack is only going to come out to, if you take a look at your Espers, let's say for example Embla, she is going to get a fixed amount of 1224 times 1.25, which is around 280, something like that. That's the only fixed amount that you're going to get. If you boost your Embla attack by like 5000, you are still going to get a boost of fixed amount of 250, and that's about it. You cannot go any further because it is based on your base attack. With this discovery, I think Jin Qiu, even at R2, he's not worth it. He's not good for any of the contents currently in the game because every content is turn count except for Desolate Lens. But again, Desolate Lens, he is a debuff dependent unit. He needs this convict buff for him to work, which is why even in Desolate Lens you won't see him as much. In future contents, if that future content has a turn limit, he's going to be bad for it because not only does he takes too many turns with his S2, every turn that he gets, he will use this one, which means he consumes 2 turns every single time he moves. And then not just because of that, because of the convict bout as well. This one will also give him AP boost, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. When they take damage, the caster's AP plus 10%, so he gets even more turns from that, which means if he's not doing a crazy amount of damage, he's just not going to be good for the team. Even at R2, the boost is not enough for him to be a good unit to bring. The next unit that you're going to skip is, this is going to be a surprise, it's going to be CJ. Now CJ, if you have him at R1, I think it's worth it to go for R2. But if you don't own him, or if you have him at R0, I don't think it's worth it to go for R2. Currently, he is only used for PvP, and he only really works with a cleave team, because in tank teams, he's not the best because there's too many units that can cooldown increase. If you go up against a Nusi, then he's not going to do much. And he's not a bruiser because he is a defense killing unit. Defense killing unit dies a bit too fast for them to be called a bruiser. So he's mostly just for nuking, and you know, you run him in a cleave team. So this one with a speed lead, again, Tolan speed lead. Speed lead, everything is just speed lead. You won't see him in tank teams because in tank teams, he's not the best currently in the meta. So if you don't own him or have him at R0, then he's going to be a skip. But if you do have him at R1, then spending 100 Wishstones for him might be worth it just for PvP. But he's going to be the lowest priority unless you have him at R1. The next 4 units that I'm going to go over is units that you might want to summon. They are all worth it in what they do. Mateo is definitely worth the 100 Wishstones. You don't really need to go higher than R0. If you want to, you can go to R2 if you already have him at R1. But if you have him at R0, you can just stay at R0. He doesn't need the boost. Mateo is a unit that is somewhat similar to Liam, because they both cover the same area, which is bossing type characters. Mateo is proven to be good for all three of this falsetto fantasy. If you go over the top teams, almost every top teams will have a Mateo in them. So yeah, Mateo, even at R0 with like D0, you can still use him. A lot of my guildmates did pull for him R0, and they did get a quite significant increase in their falsetto fantasy score. There we go. R0 Mateo, D0 Mateo is still usable in falsetto fantasy. Not just that, he is also the best nuker for Fafnir. If you're not using a Xuan Pin, the only one that can one-shot Fafnir is going to be Mateo, and the rest of the units cannot one-shot Fafnir from 100 to 0. So he's good for all three falsetto fantasy, good for Fafnir, and he is also going to be good for your Desolate Lands Shadow Stream, because he also provides the speed up or speed buff lead, and also from his damage. If you go to like some of the teams, they will include Mateo in here because he does good damage, right? And also because of the speed lead. In PvP, you won't see him as much or at all, because he is single target 1, and also he is not so much of a bruiser because he doesn't scale with HP or defense, and his damage reduction builds up very slowly as well. Mateo, definitely well worth it. He is proven to be good in falsetto fantasy, so there's no risk in summoning for him. You definitely want to summon for him if you are looking for a bossing type character in the upcoming Celestial Anomaly. He's most likely going to be good. Now the next unit that is going to be rated up in the PTR server, coming in the live server in a few hours, is going to be Ginny. If you are a PvP only player, then R2 is definitely going to be your target. If you don't own her and you don't have enough to R2 her, I don't think it's going to be worth it to go maybe R0 or R1 and then go to from the ripple boxes or whatever, because any time can change. I will always never spend my Wishstones unless I can get to the target resonance. So for Ginny, I'm going to skip her because it takes way too many Wishstones from unowned to R2 for it to be usable. And not only that, she is a bruiser, which means she will have the bruiser syndrome. If you don't have a divinate, she's not going to perform as well. If you don't have like resonance 3, resonance 5, then she's not going to perform as well, especially when you climb up the ranks. But when you take a look at her win rate in knockout, she is one of the best PvP knockout unit that you can use because she needs specific counters. You either one shot her from 100 to 0, or you bring a unit that can seal her healing, right? So this is top 100. As you can see, her win rate is very good. 68%, 47%, 83%, 39%. The rule is very good for her because she does multi-hits on her S3, and the extra defense gives her more survivability. So this win rate might be a little bit inflated, but she is still going to be very good with or without the knockout rule. But like I said, if you are a PvP player only, then you definitely want to pick her up to R2. If you are balanced between PvE and PvP, if you do have her at R1, then it might be worth it to go for her R2 and then just stop there. But you once again, you need her divinate for her to perform very good because of the extra basic stats that she gets. Extra HP for her to survive, extra attack for her to do more damage. All of the attacks and HP and defense is going to be very good for a bruiser unit. Between her and CJ R2, if you do have her at R1, then I think she's worth more than you going for R2 CJ if you have R1 CJ to begin with. Next unit is going to be Ethan. Ethan is mostly for PvP, but you can also use him for PvE. He is used for all except for Andra's speed teams. If you go to Kronos, he is there. If you go to APEP, he is there. Fafnir, he is there. There we go, that's Ethan. And the reason why he's used for like this Ritual Miracle is that he provides the buffs even without moving. Start of turn buffs like Sally or anything else is going to be good for turn limit contents because they don't need to take their turn for them to provide the buff, right? If you go to APEP, he's going to be, there you go, there's Ethan, and you're going to find a lot of teams with Ethan as well. Fafnir as well, he is your defense breaker for the team. There we go, rank 1 has Ethan. For Andras, you will not find him because the buffs that he provide is completely useless. You cannot crit on Andras, otherwise you do less damage. And the crit rate up is also very bad. The only thing that's good about the buff that you have for Ethan is going to be the flat speed. And then for like Desolate Lens is not really that good. Falsetto Fantasy, not too good as well. But his main use is going to be for PvP. He is what drives Speed Cleave team to be usable. Without him, the Speed Cleave team is not going to be usable. You can also use him in like a tank team, but it's not going to be that good. The best team that you're going to use him in is the Speed Cleave team. So if you are a Speed Cleave team, Speed team player, then you will need to summon for R2 Ethan. That's the only case that I would say from going from unowned to R2 Ethan is worth it. If you are a speed player, then you summon for him even if you don't have him. Spend 300 Wishstones on him. But if you're not a speed player, then going for his R2 from R0 or unowned is not worth it, I'd say. If you do have him at R1, then definitely get him to R2. Once again, his R2 is going to be more worth it than CJ, in my opinion. Now lastly, Liam. I would say he's worth 100 Wishstones. Especially if you have a Tever. His best pairing is going to be with Tever. But if you're conflicted between Liam or Mateo, then the safe bet is going to be with Mateo because he is proven to be good in Falsetto Fantasy. But Liam is still in the theory crafting, right? We haven't tested him out in Falsetto Fantasy. But one thing to note is that Liam is actually better than you expect. You don't need him to be with Divinates, unlike Mateo. Mateo, you need him to be with like Divinate and maybe at R2 for him to perform well in terms of damage. But with Liam, you just need to get him to R0 and max out his third skill, which only, if you get lucky, then you only need 2 legendary ability mons. He doesn't need Divinate, he doesn't need Rezo for him to be good, especially when you have Tever. And also one more thing, his Vigilant buff is actually more broken than you think. This plus 30% attack might not seem like a lot, but when you take a look at like maybe Jin Qiu, right? Jin Qiu, the buffs that he provides is base attack plus 50%. When you take a look at Ahmed's passive is Supporting Song plus 4% base attack up to 60% base attack. So base attack means that you only times the boost onto your base attack. Once again, Tang Xuan is only going to get 60% times 1.2k, which is around, what is that, 620 or something like that, somewhere around that ballpark, which is a lot, but it takes a while for you to accumulate that from Ahmed and stuff like that, right? And it's only capped at 600 plus because it's on the base attack. Liam, on the other hand, is plus 30% attack. I've already tested this out. This is not just your base attack, it is your overall attack, which means your base attack after addition of attack lead, after addition of, you know, your resonance, your everything that adds to your attack, this comes right after. So for example, if you have your Tever at plus 5000 attack, total 5000 attack after your attack lead and your relics on everything, this buff is going to be 5000 times 1.3%. I'll put the math on the screen, but that's a lot. Yeah, it's going to be more than what Ahmed provides, more than what Jin Qiu can provide with his R2, and that's what makes him super broken. What this doesn't stack with is your attack buff. So for example, if you have your attack buff plus this Vigilant buff, so it's not going to be 1.3 times 1.4, it's going to be 1.4 plus 0.3. So the total attack that you're going to get from the Vigilant buff plus attack buff is going to be 1.7 times multiplier. It's still going to be very good, but once again, if you want a unit that is guaranteed to be good for bossing contents, then you go for Mateo. If you already have a Mateo, then you can also go for Liam, but Liam is still in the theory crafting phase. I will summon for him in my main account and I'll try out some teams with him. I think it's going to be very good, especially with if you have Tever. Oh, and I forgot to mention one more thing. Liam, he does gain an additional turn with his S3 on a 4-turn cooldown, but it's only once every 4 turns. The biggest problem with Jin Qiu, on the other hand, is that he gains his additional turn once every 2 turns. So every turn that he gets, he will spam this S2. Whereas Jin Qiu, where every turn that he gets is not a guaranteed is not an additional turn. You only do your additional turn when he casts his S3. His S1 is not a bad thing because when you pair him up with Tever, his S1 is just as good as Tever's S1. Because whenever he S1, Tever will then follow up with his S1 doing almost 200,000 damage, right? So his damage output is going to be the same as the unit that you are pairing him with. If that unit is good, then he is good. If that unit is bad, then he is bad. But yeah, that's about it. Ciao.